All right, everyone, welcome back to the Mission 300 podcast, our first episode of 2026. And we are the kind of guys that are really excited for this new year. We have a lot of energy. We're doing stuff and it's exciting. And if you are one of the people that are just depressed because last year was bad and this year is going to be rough too, we get it. We've been there. But honestly, that's not where we're at right now. We're just ready to take things over. And we were actually talking before we started recording this episode about how long we've been doing this podcast, and we don't have an exact date, but I was going through some of my digital notepad and I found notes for our podcast from early 2019. That was a little while ago. So we have been doing this a long time, and you might think, well, that's why they're so good at it. They've been doing it forever. And yes, we are clearly some of the best podcasters on planet Earth, but honestly, this has just been a fun ride so far, and we're excited to see what comes next with this year. So here's what we're going to go after today in this episode. We want to ask a couple of questions. What about your thinking, your physical abilities, or your spiritual understanding? What about those is holding you back from growing this year? And what about your objectives that you've already set in your mind would change if you were stronger and more confident in other areas in your life? So we want to bounce that around a little bit.
We just take some of those questions and just start with that first one is when we're thinking about our thinking, just kind of the way we think about life, how we view things. Maybe we're coming from a viewing of last year of what didn't work. I've tried that before. This doesn't work. So that kind of thinking, that mentality, or physically, maybe you have a few pounds to lose. Maybe if I brought up, hey, let's go run a mile, and you're thinking running, man, it's tiring just lifting up the legs on my lazy boy. Maybe that's where you're at. Maybe spiritual understanding is you've read a lot about God, but the actual idea of this relationship interacting with him and your perceived ideas about your spiritual life, whatever it may be, whatever aspect of your life that is weak or you feel limited in, how much is that affecting what you're planning for the future? So I wanted to start with those questions. We'll hit that. And then I want to get to some actionables that we could start changing these ideas going forward. But guys, what do you think holds you back from an objective you would like to accomplish? Or what objective have you just gotten rid of because it's like, it ain't going to happen? Like you just kind of abandoned even working on it. And because of a limitation somewhere in your life.
I know what I'm really looking forward to this month is on the Mission 300 app that's in development currently. We've got the challenge going on. And one of the challenges on there is walking or running 1 mile a day. And I think one of my biggest mental blocks that I always have for myself is self-discipline to do the little thing consistently. Like I'll have these big ideas and these different things where I'm like, I'm going to do this. And I'll just kind of get so caught up in the end goal that I'll forget that I have to walk 1 mile a day if I want to have walked 30 miles a day by the end of, or 30 miles by the end of the month. Like you could think, oh, I want to walk 30 miles in the month of January. How am I going to do that? Okay. Oh, I forgot to yesterday. I'm going to walk an extra 2 today. Well, I don't have time for that. Okay. Well, I'll take care of it 3 tomorrow. Procrastination, making this big goal that makes it impossible. And I always negotiate with myself in like the worst way possible. Like it's like the voice that's like, well, if you just, like it's like the Homer Simpson quote. It's like, why do today what you can put off until tomorrow? And so I think that self-discipline aspect has always been a little bit of a struggle. And then I don't give myself evidence that I can do these things because I'm not doing them. So when we have like this accountability with each other and to put down a note, hey, I walked a mile today or I ran a mile today. It's like this little thing, but it's this little consistent thing. And I think for me, that's going to be really big because that's like the little discipline that leads to this bigger thing that you can look back and go, okay, this month really was different for me. And so I think that's like one mental thing that always holds me back, that I think like what we're doing this month is a big solution to me as long as I stick to it. But it's relatively easy to have discipline in these little things. And I think that'll lead up to something bigger, which I think is, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. So.
What was that Homer Simpson quote?
Why do today what you can put off until tomorrow?
Caleb, you kind of just really emphasized the mastery of the tomorrow plan. Never
Oh
fails.
yeah.
You never lose at it. It's always a win-win.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
Because
the
tomorrow is
problem.
always tomorrow.
Yep. Tomorrow never comes in the end. That's what really happens.
I know you're not looking for any unsolicited advice, but here's my advice for you.
I'll take
The
it.
procrastination thing, I've always come back to this quote by Peter J. Daniels, and we talk about him a lot. I think because he impacted Brian a lot, and now Brian's impacted me, and now I've read a lot of his stuff. But he has a saying. He just says, "Mastery over procrastination. Do it now." And
Hmm.
so when I find myself in the same slump of like, "Ooh, I need to send this person an email. Ooh, I need to call this person. Oh, I need to do this," it's like, okay, mastery over procrastination. I'm just gonna call because the hardest part is putting in the number, right? The hardest part is putting on the shoes. The hardest part is that first step because once you do that first step, it's like on to the next one. But I totally get that. The
That's good advice.
the grand vision and then getting lost in the day to day. I think for myself, my thinking that's holding me back over the last 3 years, I think I've really taken a huge step back in my health. And part of it stems from my thought, and I'm kind of having to rework this now. It's interesting is I travel a lot for work, and my whole goal while traveling is like I want to get the most done using all the time that I'm gone. So I will book meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. I'll be working sun up to sundown and even try and find time when the sun's down to do more things. Meaning I'm going to be driving from 3 a.m. till midnight, but I'm going to be able to do 7 meetings during the day versus only doing three. And for me, it just created such an unhealthy pattern in my life of I don't care what's going in my body. I don't care what rest I get. And I don't care if I move at all during the day outside of walking in customers' facilities or at a customer's place. And it's just created this so unhealthy. Like, yeah, it's great to want to do as much with the time I'm not with my family, but I'm rewiring my brain right now to think, man, yeah, I'm thinking so short term right now. If I spent an extra day and I actually went and had a good meal instead of the Casey's gas station pizza, like, man, I'm just killing myself slowly by trying to move too quick. And I think that's what I'm working on this year is my whole thought process on traveling and actually being healthy and honestly just kind of trusting God in the process that I don't need to have 7 meetings for things to go right. I can have 2 meetings and live a healthy life and trust God that I'm going to meet the two people I need to meet.
I like that. One of my issues was with my thinking, where it's like lately I've been doing a lot of stuff, and anything that comes up, I feel like I'm responsible to dive in and lead or run with. And there's a good context for that, but then as we've kind of mentioned this in the last few episodes, what ended up happening was I was not owning my time anymore because there were so many things that I felt like I had to be involved in at this level, that my time was not me assigning my valuable time to something. It was, well, this is pulling me now. And that really, that has to change. Otherwise, I won't be able to do anything. Like that's going to stunt every ounce of growth and every goal I have for this year if that stays the same. Because that's just, there's no way to operate like that. And I think the way it was easy for me to slip into that was because it makes you feel like you're really pushing it and crushing it. Like, look at what I'm doing. You just tell yourself that internally. Look what I'm doing. And at the end of the day, no one cares and no one's impressed. And you're like, oh, well, that did nothing. I guess I better rethink things. I think that's maybe some of what you have, Tommy, in your head with like, man, I just had all these meetings today. I barely slept. I had just ate gas station food. Look what I did. And then at the end of the day, you're like, I feel like crap. And no one's really, if they are impressed with it, that's not going to undo the health damage I just did to myself. So what was it really worth, you know?
Let me ask a couple questions on that real quick, because as we're thinking about the future and planning, and we know we need to grow and develop, when do you know that you're doing enough that's going to benefit your future, even if no one else is recognizing it? And when are you doing something hoping someone would recognize it, but it's actually accomplishing nothing? How do you distinguish? Because they can look the same. How do you know when that is?
I think part of it too is like, for my example of like wanting to do as much as possible with the time that I'm gone, I think it also had to do with like the season of like, I kind of did have to do that to learn. Like it
Sure.
expedited my learning process. Where now, if I think about it, maybe with a little bit more wisdom, a little bit more understanding, it's like, well, I could do a lot more taking more time with one or two customers than trying to max out and hit all seven. And I'm going to have a more whole life, right? I'm going to be able to get my workout in. I'm going to be able to go find a good meal instead of uh, stopping at the gas stations of America in the middle of nowhere, right? Or maybe plan ahead and pack my own meal. Like, what a concept. But I think there is like a, you're right, Brian. It is hard to tell, like, at which point does that change?
One of the things for me, it was there's a difference between I know that doing this is going to cost something and it's right and I'm willing to sacrifice for it, knowing that that is intentional and it's for a purpose, as opposed to the feeling of, man, if you don't do this, what are you going to lose? What are you going to lack? Maybe you're not doing enough. There's those feel different, at least in my mind now. Like in the next month or so, we're going to be business wise opening an expansion, and I'm going to need to be there all day for a couple of weeks at least to get this thing up and running. And that's going to take a lot of time and sacrifice. But the difference is, I know what this is. We're building towards this. This is what it'll take time wise. I'm owning my time and putting it to that. And as opposed to, well, this new thing is here and now it owns your time and you're stuck in it. If that makes sense.
Yes. How do you build reserves for that day? How do you like you if you're going to run a 10K, you're going to run a marathon, you don't wait till the marathon hits and go run it, because it exhausts everything out of you. How do you prepare when you're in control of things for the day when a little bit of it's out of your control? You kind of flow with what it is. How do you prepare for that?
Well, I think that's exactly it. You got to plan ahead, right? I can say, oh, I want to eat healthy while I'm on the road, but if I don't stop and think and plan ahead, plan out my route, plan out my stops to accommodate for a good meal or to accommodate, find a hotel that has a good workout center, or stay in the town that's maybe 25 minutes further away but has the Planet Fitness membership that I could go and work out, right? I think it's exactly that. You build in reserves by planning ahead. Then you adjust that day when that day happens, right? Like, go with the punches when they come. But if you haven't planned ahead, I mean, you're just going with the flow. And going with the flow, I think you're just always going to go the easiest route, right? At least
Tommy,
I've always done that.
you've always been disciplined like this. You're a planner. You're always thinking about the future. You're more method. You gotten out. You can recognize when you got off track, but you're always like this. What about for some of us who don't like to plan? We just like to go for it. How do we become a planner when you're just like, some people could look at like, yeah, you want to spend all your day planning. I'm just going to go get it done. So I'm not saying you're not wrong, by the way, because that person gets worn out. So we're worn out. You're still going and trucking along. How do we change mindset? So that's a mindset that we're talking about that holds us back from doing big objectives, because the idea of planning is almost more overwhelming than running a marathon to most people.
So here's one seemingly maybe stupid small thing that I did a few years ago, and I don't know if this applies to what you're looking for or not, Brian, but I made the decision. It was at a time where I was working a much more physically demanding job. I was up at 3:50 a.m. every single day, and I made the decision that the first words out of my mouth every morning were going to be, "I'm grateful," and I would shut up until I said those words. And every single morning, it was until I was a minute or two into my commute. And I would literally not let myself say anything until that. And once I said those words, it wasn't as if like a magic switch flipped, but it made me think. It's like, why did I say that today? Well, I am actually grateful. Like, I know a billion people in worse situations than me that have it harder than me. Even this crappy car with no heat I'm driving in Minnesota in January when it's negative 10 degrees. Like, yeah, that sucks, but I have it, and it gets me to this job where I get to do stuff. And even if it's those like cliche things, the fact that I made myself say those words, it actually paid huge dividends down the road, because my mindset started off strong every single morning because of that, and not once was I a victim of my day because of that.
That's good.
I like what you're saying, Jason. I think it sounds to me like the similar thread between like what you were saying, Tommy, with the planning ahead, what you were saying, Jason, with the deciding for yourself. I think it's like, for me, I know I have to decide for myself in advance, like what I'm going to do. Like when it comes to food, I have to decide at the beginning of the week when I go to the grocery store what I'm eating the rest of the week. So I put all that stuff in my fridge that I'm going to eat, because I know I'm going to eat whatever's in my fridge whenever it's available. So I put things that I have to cook, so I can't just instantly go in there and even grab it. Like it's like I'm making the decision for myself in advance of what I'm going to do. So even like with the walking every day, like I've decided I'm walking every day for a mile, running a mile, 1 mile every day. I've decided now that is happening. That's not like I'm going to wake up tomorrow and go, okay, am I going to run a mile this morning before I go to work? No, like I'm not making the decision in the moment. So I think that's a big thing, even for like the planning for Tommy. For me, the procrastination is like decide for yourself right now. So there's not like, I think just that mental aspect of like making the decision in advance for yourself and then doing that every day. Like it's almost like being honest with yourself every day, because you didn't lie. Like your future self isn't lying to your past self of, okay, well, I said I was going to walk a mile every day. I can't lie to myself, because that's going to harm what I believe I can do. Like same for like the food thing. So yeah, like I know there was this like quote unquote motivational talker. I don't even remember who it was, but he basically said, if you want to do something in this quote unquote believe in yourself, don't believe in yourself. Build evidence for yourself that you can do something. So like that's why I'm excited for the mile a day. Because if I can make the decision to walk or run 1 mile a day, then maybe in a month I'll believe that I will have the evidence that I can do 2 miles a day. I'll have the evidence that I can do 3 miles a day. Like that's how somebody runs a marathon. You train and you give yourself evidence that I can run 18 miles. Like before we got on, Brian was saying you have to run like 20 miles twice in like 3 weeks before a marathon. And that's like giving yourself evidence that you can run 20 miles in one go. And so I think that's like the big thing with the decision making, is you're giving yourself this evidence that you're honest with yourself and you can commit to this, and it builds into this whole thing. I don't know what you would say that is, but I think that's like key with the decision and planning making, is giving evidence to yourself that you can, because then you'll believe it when you do it.
Hey, Caleb, Jason, and Tommy, I think you guys just answered this question so indirectly, but almost very clearly, and I want to pull it all together because it really fits. Tommy's a planner. because he expects to actually go do what he plans. If you're not a planner, it could be from the lack of integrity and evidence that you have that you'll ever fulfill a plan. So why waste your time in the mental energy of planning? So if you have such a track record internally of not doing what you've said you're going to do, planning would become miserable. Could we say that's a fair assessment? What a waste of
Oh, yeah.
time. Jason hit something really powerful, is in the process of doing the hard thing and building that integrity. The thing you're doing isn't victimizing you. You're choosing that. That's a power all by itself. And I love that, Jason, that gratitude. We could spend a whole podcast on being grateful. The moment your thing, the decision you're asking, that you're committing to go do, becomes almost the weapon against you, you're becoming a victim. This is where power in every situation comes from. So I just thought it was an interesting tie-in. You guys kind of all pulled together the application of the benefit of planning, what you do in the middle of planning, and what happens when you fulfill a plan. So it really is that full cycle. Okay, that's really kind of clear to me as you guys just said it, which is amazing. So you have to do something, and there's this thinking that goes on. So that's a break in mindset. So I think for a listener and for myself, I get what you guys are going, but I kind of want people to really grab a hold of this. The mindset is the bigger issue than the actual thing. And you just walk through how a mindset could change. Once you know you can do something and keep your own word, the sky becomes the limit.
One thing to add on to that as well, I think a good resource for people for planning, Jesse Itzler, he has a lot of things on planning your day, planning your month, planning your year. Great resource to go check out in terms of planning. He's got a whole calendar system. It's really great. But one thing for me that really helped too is really just focusing on the calendar and like putting what I'm going to do in my calendar, because things are always going to come up. But are those the things that I really want to do? Right? I set aside Monday night. I have stuff. I have this podcast on the calendar. You don't think I have stuff come up Monday night that I would be like, oh man, that'd be way more fun. But no, I already made the decision. It's in my calendar.
Hey,
I
this
now
What would
is
be more
fun.
fun? What would be more fun?
What could be more fun? What is wrong with your mental thinking? I can't even believe you just said that. I am
All right.
just shocked and overwhelmed.
I just want the listeners to know there's more conversations that go on before the podcast that push growth, and there's a lot of sarcasm, and sometimes it's like I don't want that on a Monday night, but
I just want to be loved, man.
getting back to the point, it's like if you put something in your calendar, it gives you an opportunity to build the confidence and build trust in yourself that you're going to do what you said you're going to do. And it also gives you a reason to say no. It's in the calendar. No, sorry, I can't do this. I've set aside time for this.
That's awesome. Hey, a couple of let's talk about something, the importance of doing little things. I think Tommy, you had mentioned doing the little building blocks. Caleb, you mentioned I can go do a walk. I mean, I don't know for the listener, it's roughly 16 to 18 minutes is a walk or a run, a mile every day. You're doing it anyway, so now you're just doing it intentionally. Little things. Even the little things of being grateful for the little things is, how much do you guys feel that the little things over time are actually more important than the big thing you actually go do?
100%.
They're everything. Yeah.
So I think we miss out on that. I think this is one quote that's kind of interesting is most people overestimate what they could do in a month, and they underestimate what they could do in a year.
Yep.
So if I don't mean lower the bar, okay? This isn't lower the standard, but lower if you have never run before, I wouldn't recommend setting a habit that causes you to go from 0 to 5 miles every day. Like, get something that creates a habit that you can do. You can go fat more. By the way, you can always go more than what your goal is, but set the goal that it's doable. It just has to take a discipline to do the goal every day. That's the bigger piece. And again, we're talking about building the habits and the mental structure so we can go do the bigger things. So I think that's more of the focus of this podcast is how do we deal with the mindsets? How do we deal with this isn't your life planning goals. These are these little support things that you will have no big life planning if you don't have some kind of mental, spiritual, and physical support system in there.
So on that note, can I ask you guys a question real quick? So Caleb, you had mentioned when it comes to food, like getting it out of the house because if it's here, I'm going to eat it, right? And that's me. But I ran into this interesting response a while ago. We had like a bunch of candy. It might have been from Easter or something in the house. And I told my wife, like, I'm going to throw these bags of candy away because if they're here, I'm just going to snack on them. And she said, why don't you just not eat them? And it was interesting because I was like, okay, fair. But I just know I'm not going to not eat them. Like, I can tell myself that, but it's a lot easier to not eat them if I don't have the option to eat them in the first place. But it made me feel kind of weird because it's like, well, why can't I just do that? Why can't I just say no to them? You know? So what do you guys do when like there's that almost attack to the mindset?
Well, I would say, Jason, you've probably built your life in a way that candy is just a part of life and that eating candy is fine, right? So who really cares? So maybe I would say, yeah, maybe from the start you do need to throw it away and need to get rid of it, change your environment. But at some point, I mean, your identity is going to change from that to, okay, can be in front of me, but I'm not going to choose that. But I think that's the starting point. It's like there's a starting point where something has to happen. You need to take an action, right? And the action is throw the candy away or eat the candy. And when your will's been broken down so much, you're just always going to eat the candy. I mean, it's the same with, dare I say, pornography, drinking, smoking. Throw it away. Get rid of it. Change the environment. I'm not saying then, okay, yeah, you're going to be so strong one day you get to go to a strip club and not be affected. No, some of it's just like, okay, don't be stupid. But all these little things aren't going to then lead to lust, lead to, oh, I need to have a drink. You know, I think there is their point to like, you need to change the environment.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree with Tommy. I treat myself with like the food because if there's an environment I can control, if I have candy in the house, no, in my apartment, I live alone. First of all, nobody's going to eat it. So when it disappears the next day, I can't be like, oh, come on, so and so, you ate the candy. There's only one person you can blame. And I think, like, too, when it goes back to the building evidence for yourself, like in your decisions, I built evidence for myself that if there is a candy bar or lots of bread in my fridge, I'm going to eat all that stuff. So for now, like, there's no point in testing myself every day when I open the fridge when I already know like what my decision would be. Like I wouldn't recommend to an alcoholic for them to, as they're starting to like give up alcohol, go to a bar every night to just test yourself and make it to like really test your willpower. I wouldn't recommend that to them. I'd be like, well, there's no reason for you to go there. Like, why would you? Why would you bother? So I think it's like the same thing. And I exactly agree with Tommy. Like, there's just some stuff for myself that I'm like, might as well not put it in front of me because the temptation to like prove to myself how strong I am, I'll probably prove myself otherwise. So for now, we'll keep it the other way.
The
I
dumpster ate
think
well
that
that night.
when someone recognizes, hey, I got an issue with this, as a friend, you help them get rid of it, because over time, if it's constantly something on your mind, if you walk by and every time you see it, you're like, oh, resist, 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 it's owning you still. So there does come a point you've got to remove it so you can start building your will, because every life is filled with temptations. But we don't need to stalk the thing that once was a temptation to do it. Like I love certain candies. You can leave hundreds of candies around, but certain candies I'm going to get. So I don't get them, because when I got a box for Christmas, I got like 4 boxes of, I love bottle caps, those candies. I don't really like other candies, but I love bottle caps. I don't know what it is. Those 4 boxes came. I was in a coma. Like my head hurt from, because I just kept eating them. And I'm like, wow, I really thought I was, I thought I had some discipline. But I can say no to all the other ones.
I'm just picturing you
But those
passed
came.
out with bottle caps just all over your shirt and just.
I don't know. I just went in total bottle cap overdose.
He's
So
coughing up the powder.
anyway, I just find it interesting. Now, granted, it's Christmas. I always joke, hey, it's Christmas time, I can do this. And I'm good with everything else. I didn't have pastries. I actually lost weight during Christmas. It was not anything like that. But I realized that's kind of a funny thing. But I really like them. It has a memory to me of something good. It has a memory of, and that's really where the attachment comes. And so when we're building our will, if you have a memory of an attachment, you got to remove it from you so you could start dealing with those thoughts, because they already come anyway. Now, we're talking about funny little candy things. Some people's things that they're thinking of aren't funny at all. And without that removal, but you have to start building a reserve. So let's go back to the building, is we need to start having the confidence, I can go run, I can go do this. If we don't create habits around our thought life, we're going to lose every battle, because everything begins there. And I thought it was interesting, is whether it's Joshua 1, Psalms 1, or Philippians 4, all deal with what you're meditating on. And Paul in the New Testament talks about we're transformed by the renewing of our mind. So our mind has to be renewed. So it's not talking about whether you're a believer or not. It's whether what you're believing is changing the way you're thinking about the world around you. And this is why a couple challenges ago we added the meditate on a verse all day. You can actually drive out thoughts, but there's 2 things that happen in a thought that comes to your mind. One, we don't originate all our thoughts. Every thought you have isn't coming from you. So if you have tendencies, or I tend to have a thought like this, doesn't mean that's what you are. Thoughts come from all over the place. Jesus had to deal with thoughts from himself, thoughts from the enemy, thoughts from God, thoughts from the environment. You're always dealing with thoughts, or always coming. You have to choose what you're going to do with those thoughts. And the stronger we become with our meditation of what we're choosing to think about versus what we're not choosing to think about, is how we start building that will. And you start doing those things that are a part of your life. And so your meditation is critical to your day. So if you, and this comes very big, because your meditation is determining what you are in your identity. If you're meditating on outside influences, your identity is weak. Is if your identity and your thoughts around your identity is dictating your outside, then you're becoming stronger. So I thought it was interesting. A little recommended read is go read Deuteronomy chapter 1 and 2. It's a fascinating thing from a whole different perspective. Don't think law, don't think Old Testament, don't think Old Covenant, just the story of a promise from God. And what happened is their thinking prevented them from the promise, because the promise had a giants in it. And so in taking the giants, that means they had to go face giants. That means they had to become bigger than the giants. And God says the greatest command throughout Scripture, and the most said command and given command by God, is do not fear, because I am with you. So if you're fearing, what don't you believe? God is with you. But every promise that he gives and every good thing that he offers, guess what is in the place of the promise? An enemy. And you get victory over it. So you got to go face that thing. That means you can't do it alone. You need God, but it's always there. But the reason the children of Israel would not take the land is because they believed the evil report that they were less than and smaller than the people in the land. So they'll easily get destroyed. So they became angry, ungrateful, and saying God hated them for bringing us to a place to be destroyed. And God wasn't bringing them to a place to be destroyed. Their old mindset about where they're going was destroying them. But God was telling Joshua, meditate every day and night in the word, because it declares who you are, so you can go take your promise. And it's fascinating. It's natural, it's physical, it's spiritual, it's in every area of your life. When we set our goals, like hey, I'm going to go walk every day for a mile. You need to establish, because you're a walker, because your body's strong, because you can do this, because I was gifted with legs and I have legs, I could go do it. And if you don't have legs, you go wheel your wheelchair a mile, because you can. And you start reinforcing that you're worth what you're going after. And each step is building to your into your identity that you're much more than what you thought you were. And it's not that your identity changes, it's you're revealing and you're peeling back all the lies that said you could not. And if you say, well, I don't feel that way, good, then go do something hard and keep doing it. So doing something hard intentionally is what reveals what we are. It reveals all of those pieces. And so I wanted to point that out, that if meditation and a strong discipline in one area is not added into your daily, that you're going to think about something, your mind will go all over the place. Second, you won't be able to know how to place those other thoughts to your mind. And the only reason that the other thoughts come in is because we fear we're missing out on something. We fear we don't have what it takes. We fear the thoughts, the value those other thoughts are putting on us. We fear all that. So we run. That's why the children of Israel couldn't take the promised land. So fear is a result of believing something different. But if you knew God was with you and he knew he gave you a promise and he knew he gave you strong arms and you knew that every place you put your foot that he was given to you, you would have a different way of thinking about, man, I could go run. What am I capable of? What did you make me to be? How far can I go with what you've given me to go do? The mentality starts building, but it doesn't start there. Everything starts in these little places of building. So I recommend in all this, start the meditation so that way, when it comes to things that you're being challenged with, you have to remove them, but at some point they're going to hit you. You got to deal with them again. Can you deal with them differently in the future? I don't mean there's certain things you don't never need to be putting into your eyes. Okay. So we understand that, but it's going to try to hit you from other places. How do you rise bigger than those challenges? And it begins with the meditation. And then at some point you have to do something natural to reinforce your capabilities, thus the physical. So you need the physical challenges that go with the mental challenges, because the mental is revealing what's really in your spiritual and what you're capable of, that God put in there, that he's with you on. So all three are building together, but don't just isolate one or the other. Keep all three in these small challenges and habits that you're building now.
Well, I actually think the physical, I wouldn't say it's the most important one necessarily, but one thing I realized about it is there's something that is so real and tangible that you see affect everything else when you tackle the physical. So let's take our just walking a mile thing. It puts you in a position of ownership, because one, you're not supposed to ask permission to go walk a mile. You just do it. You say, hey, I'm going to go walk a mile. You're not asking someone for permission. You're not asking if it's okay. You're not checking the roads or making sure you can walk in this building or not on this sidewalk. You're doing it. And I think there's something really big to that, because I think, like Brian, you were talking about the Israelites not going into the land because they had just come out of slavery. Everything they did was, the person in charge of me told me to do this, so I'm going to do it. But now you're faced with this, go do this. Well, why? Who's telling me? God. Okay, well, I don't see him. Well, yeah, but he's real and God's with you, so go do this thing. Well, I need my supervisor to tell me it's okay and give me permission, because God's permission isn't enough. And I think there's something weird about our mindset that shifts when we take ownership of a physical action and say, I'm just doing this. And I think that unlocks something in the other areas of our lives where we realize you can just do things. Like you can just think about things and meditate on things that you know are true, that grow you as a person, and then live them out without someone's permission. I mean, obviously in the context of what's good and right and proper and correct, obviously. But I think that ownership aspect is huge, and it's unlocked by the physical actions we take.
But if we're meditating on the wrong thing, or on the right thing, then you won't do the wrong thing. Because our actions follow. So to your point, we don't even have to disclaimer it. If you're meditating on something that takes you down to X, Y, and Z place that you shouldn't be, you're meditating on the wrong thing. You didn't get there by accident. You didn't just wake up in the morning and just, wow, I can't believe I'm here. No, a meditation started, and you let a thought control, and that thought became ownership, and you owned that thought. So quit owning thoughts. Make the thoughts align to what you are. Don't own thoughts. Wow, I can't believe I'm like that. Man, am I that bad of a person? I can't believe that thought went through my head. I actually wanted to kill that guy. No, you didn't want to kill that guy. Don't meditate on it. You meditated on it too long and it becomes possessive to you. That's where it starts. Someone doesn't just wake up and go murder someone. If something builds and stirs and meditation starts taking place. Jesus had to learn to manage his thoughts. Paul says you cast down thoughts and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. We can actually walk in God thoughts and do everything. And it's the most exciting life. And if you think that's not exciting, it's because you have never meditated on it. You've never seen what it is to be an adventurer. And some of the greatest men that invented and conquered and did all sorts of things. When I say conquered, I don't mean like a brutal conqueror. I'm like exploring territories, all had a belief in them that came from God in this relationship, and it stirred into their actions. We could live in the most exciting time. Now you might say, well, I'm in prison. I don't have freedom to do things. No, but you have freedom how you're going to think. You have freedom every day how you're going to think. You can do something. You can do a squat. You can do a push-up. You could do something. Something you could do. That you're free within your thought to start building in it. So Jason, to your 100% point, we have something physical that we can make our thought do physically. It could be writing something on a piece of paper, but you can make your body do something that aligns with your thoughts, and you do that long enough, and pretty soon your spirit's able to tell your brain to do something. Your brain can tell your body to do something, and it's starting to create fruitful effect on other people's lives.
So all great, wonderful. How do I do that tomorrow? How? Like, I hear what you're saying, and like, yeah, meditate on it. But Brian, I passed by a McDonald's, and my body's still gonna drive right to that drive-through when I'm hungry. Oh, how do I change this repeating tape of fast food, let's say, right? It's a thing that it's not talked about, right? There's so many other things, smoking, all that stuff, but it's fast food. It's killing us.
So
how?
Let's start right there. Let's use the fast food, and we can apply it to every single thing. Why are you going to fast food? You're hungry. Why are you hungry? You didn't prepare anything. Why are you wanting that? Because it will give you some kind of sensation to make you feel better about your day. There is a pleasure in that. I mean, you didn't go and swing in quick to Cub Food and grab a stem of broccoli and chew on it. I'm not saying broccoli is actually the better option. I'm saying there's other things you could have gone and grabbed quick, but you grabbed that quick. So there's a feeling to that. We focus so much on getting rid of something. I would recommend changing that. Do something different.
So
So
let me
I
let me
would
add a different layer
recommend,
to
I
that.
would recommend you want to have a burger, have a burger. But before you have that burger, you pull your car over on the sidewalk and walk a mile. Then go back and have your burger. Have as many as you want, but you go walk your mile before you go have the burger. I guarantee if you were disciplined saying, wow, I'm free to go have the burger. So now you're not wrestling with that thought. You can go do it. But I'm going to go walk then. I guarantee you won't have that burger.
Yeah, you don't carry the guilt, that guilt that comes after if you have the freedom, because I do have the freedom to choose. I can go choose and have a burger, but then as a result of that choice, I'm also going on a 1 mile walk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, let me add a layer to that because, and I don't know if this would apply to Tommy, but I worked with a ton of guys that this was the thing. You're not going to McDonald's necessarily because you're hungry. You're going to McDonald's because you are a little hungry, and the endorphins and emotions you get from eating that crap makes you feel a little bit better about how much your life sucks and you hate your job and you dread going home every single day. And that helps numb it down a little bit. It's no different than alcohol for some people. It's a comfort food that helps numb you emotionally because it tastes really good and it gives you that rush for a little bit. And yes, it satisfies the hunger because you do have to eat too. But if someone held a steak in front of you, you'd reach for the McDonald's.
I 100% agree with that because I can eat healthy and then I will still want like some cheap fast food after because it wasn't quite the same like sugary sweetness that the food was. What I found for myself, and I don't know, this might not be a solution for Tommy per se, but when I want to go grab fast food, I have to go home. I have to fully prepare and cook a meal at home and go through that whole process and eat that. And then I can think about if I want the burger or not. And for me personally, this might not work for everybody, but like I have found that the process of like cooking this nice meal for myself that's healthy, like ground beef with a side of like a cucumber salad or something I'll make that's like fresh, and doing this whole process where it takes me like on my lunch break, takes me my whole lunch break to like cook and do this whole thing and then quickly eat it. And then I run out of time on my lunch break. So I'm like, I better get back to work. But like the satisfaction of cooking this for myself and going, I did something like good for myself because I took the time to cook this. I made a nice meal for myself and I had it and it nourished my body. Like I feel better because I ate that. I think there's like a whole process of saying yes to something else and taking a process to go do something else instead of that. And I found that for a lot of stuff in my life. There's like, okay, if I want to go do that, you know what, I can, but I'm gonna go, like you were saying, Brian, I'm gonna go walk a mile before. Like, what can I go do before that disciplines myself? And then all of a sudden, the decision to say no after because I said yes to something else is like a lot easier. So every time I want fast food, I'm like, I have to go cook something for myself first, and I have to eat that. And then that mitigates the hunger. There's like this whole process of discipline. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, is it really worth it? Because I just put in all this work into this other thing. Why would it be worth it to ruin everything I just did for the last 20 or 30 minutes? Why would I want to ruin my healthy walk that got me outside with a McDonald's burger? Like it's like putting all this healthy sunlight, fresh air into me just to destroy it all with a McDonald's burger. So I think like the discipline of saying yes to something else in some other process first. And even you can, like, I negotiate with myself. I'm like, I can decide after. Like, I'm not like, oh, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go do something else. I'm like, you know what? Let me do this first and then I'll decide. And after I'm like, well, why would I do that? It's not even worth my time, my money, and my health. Like, and I do not get that every time, but that has been the solution for me, to be honest. That's what's worked. That's why I have to put in what I know I'm going to eat in my fridge because I know I need something that's a process to cook and make a healthy meal of meat and vegetables. So
That's really good. I think that is exactly like people talk about new resolutions for the new year, right? And I think the problem, and I think I'm realizing this now, is like you go from one extreme to the other extreme, and you set yourself up for failure. Whereas if you just started with, yes, I have the freedom to go to McDonald's whenever I want, but I also have the freedom and I'm going to do this before that. And you slowly over time build it into your identity. Oh, I know I I don't need the fast food because I'm getting fast walking, I'm getting fast running. So now I need to start fueling my body for that. I think that's a much healthier approach to the whole New Year's resolutions, the building the daily disciplines. It goes back to discipline equals freedom, right? I have the freedom to choose whatever I want. Now I'm going to be disciplined in that choice. And when I'm disciplined, I actually have true freedom because I can actually enjoy the things I want to enjoy.
Have you ever been
Yeah,
around someone who's like accomplished something great and so disciplined and they work hard, the things they don't allow in their life, and then you're around someone who you would think would not allow those certain components in your life, let's just say belief systems, like you can take a hard trained athlete who's so focused on their athletics, their habits are so, I don't want to call them holy, but they have like they're so there's a holiness to them, like, and then you have like a Christian with all these quote unquote should have these certain habits, and they find more time justifying why they can have that habit, and they try to find a spiritual reason why they can have that habit. And so now we're fighting because they're trying to fight the guilt of whether they can or can't. The athlete knows those things hold me back. Over here, you're not, you're just fighting whether I can or can't. What a waste of time. And I find it interesting in Hebrews, it says, you start running your race. And as you run your race, looking unto the joy of the race, you lay aside those things that beset you. You don't lay them aside before you start the race because you don't know what you need to lay aside. But once you start running, you start knowing what needs to be laid aside. But because of the joy of the run, you lay them aside. So,
yeah. I think one question too that I found has helped myself is like, how bad do I want it? And there's this, like, it's a terrible meme, I'll say, but it is an interesting perspective. And it was like, if you look at the crackhead, look at what they will do to get $1 to go buy crack. Like they will do whatever it takes to go get $1 to go buy crack. And it's like, okay, do I have that kind of motivation to go do? Granted, it's bad for you, and there's a whole nother category there. But like even like Tommy, I just thought my coworker who's much better at health than me, he is like he wants his health to be good enough and he hates fast food like nobody I've ever seen before. He's so obsessed with it. He's like, we're gonna bring a propane little mini stove. I'm gonna bring a cooler. We're gonna go buy steaks from the grocery store, and we're gonna go to a like camping location, and we're gonna cook them in the back of the parking lot or at this camping spot. And he like wants it bad enough that he's like, I'm gonna do all these other things. But it turns into this like beautiful process where it's like, oh, I'm grilling a steak in the back of a parking lot. Like this is such a cool experience. I'm enjoying this food cooking process way more. I feel better because I did this whole thing. And I think like that's one thing I have to ask myself is like, how bad do I want it? Like even on the Appalachian Trail, I remember people at the beginning being like, you need to get rid of some of that stuff. Like if you want to finish the Appalachian Trail, you're going to end up dropping that stuff anyways, because nobody's walking with that extra weight by the end of the trail, like the people who finish. And I'd be like, yeah, sure, whatever, but they're like my comforts. And I think that's like the same analogy for life is like, how bad do you want to get to that mountaintop you're trying to get to? Like, what are you really willing to sacrifice? Because it is those things that easily beset us, like they're weights that are unnecessary. So I think it is like you're saying, Brian, like it's like going after this, saying yes to this, and getting rid of these comforts and pleasures. Like for me, fast food is the least helpful thing to me. It's only a quote unquote comfort. Like it is strange how it's like that. I'll say it's very weird, but the things that I want are more important than how I feel and like what's easy. And so it's like, how bad do I want it? And even for like walking a mile a day, like if, I mean, basically almost going to be like 2 years ago now, I was walking, 20 miles a day. And now for me to go to myself and go like, well, I just got to walk 1 mile a day. Like that is no problem for me to do, but it's like, how bad do I want to be at the place of consistency and evidence that I can do this thing and I back up? So it's like, even this almost embarrassing thing for myself. It's like, okay, well, how bad do I want it? I'm going to get rid of the comforts and the pleasures and these weights that are holding me back. And I will do whatever it takes to like make it inconvenient for myself and do these extra steps. But I think there's always a solution. Like if you got to bring a propane heater and a cooler and a little mini grill to cook some healthy food, like I would say go for that. Like I'm saying that for myself because that's what I need to do on work trips. And so I think there's always a solution to something that's like that.
With that said, I want to give an application. So we're doing as a group, we have 3 challenges. One is a mental one. You got to pick a scripture verse, a thought in scripture. Why scripture? Because life is there. There's life in it. And when you meditate on it, something happens. And it's not memorizing. You're not memorizing a scripture. You're thinking and chewing and putting it into application, see how it works. And you let it resonate all day, every day, and something begins to take place. And we could talk more about the benefits of that. But the Bible, from a Christian perspective, from a Jewish perspective, from a pre-Jewish perspective with Abram, is you have to meditate first before it starts coming to play. So we have to have a practice of meditation. Second thing, and plus you can think about something all day long. Second thing is we do a mile walk or a mile run every day. So it's not too long, but every day. So these are things not just once a day, once every 3 days. You can work out if you're training for a marathon, do your training plan, but every day you have to do at least this. And the third thing that we have in there is to some kind of creative moment, 10 minutes of a creative moment where you write a story, you write a thought, you storyboard something, you write a music lyric, something for 10 minutes. And it's not mandatory, it's creative. And you just note it, and then you move on with your day. And what you're doing is you're bringing out your imagination to new things that you hadn't been thinking about. So that's it. Those 3 creative habits for the next 90 days we're doing. So you're welcome to join in with us and to be a part of that. And I'd like to hear your questions, but I'm going to leave again. Don't focus what you need to let go of. Focus on where you want to go. Get going somewhere and then deal with what needs to be let go of. And I know a lot of people have to let go of a lot of things, but if you live your life just letting go, you'll still just be victim to the thing that you're stuck with. Even if you're not doing it, it's owning you. And I'd rather see you stepping out into something new. So those are my final thoughts.
Any final thoughts, Tommy or Caleb?
For myself, reflecting on, and maybe this can go forward into next week, is Romans 12:11, never be lazy, but work hard and serve the Lord enthusiastically. I want to go to the next point of where, yeah, I can work hard. I can do the hard disciplines, but I'm not enthusiastic about it. I still want the McDonald's. I still want this other stuff. How can I get the intense, eager enjoyment from doing these hard things? And I think that's where we can go next time.
Hey, and a little secret for next week. It's actually possible. It's actually way more possible than we thought. So.
All right, we're going to wrap it up with that. We appreciate you guys listening in. I just want to leave all of us with a question at the end here and something to ponder and think about and ultimately take action on. So how much of your day-to-day consists of things that are put on you versus things that you are deciding to do as an owner of your time because you know who you are and you know the meaning of the things that you're doing? And my encouragement is to lean into the latter. Until next time, keep the faith and stay in the fight.